Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you...
Oh, I don't know.
...McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, or the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
Now, what you just heard there from that so-called reporter was a refrain coming from the woke corporatist media that was written long before the impeachment inquiry was announced yesterday. Take a look at this coordinated propaganda.
There is zero evidence of any malfeasance on the part of President Joe Biden.
There's been no evidence. And so they're using this word inquiry.
There is no direct evidence. They would be going forward with an impeachment inquiry based on lies.
The craziest people on the back benches in the House of Representatives are demanding that Kevin McCarthy call for an impeachment. This is the White House's dream.
The impeachment inquiry is absurd. The American people want us to do something that will make their lives better, not go off on these chases and witch hunt.
So, gang, that is your permanent political class at work, pushing propaganda approved by donors, by billionaires and bureaucrats, and they're all spouting out in lobotomy-like unison these pre-selected talking points. Everyone you just heard there unanimously dismissed this impeachment inquiry on the same basis because there's, quote, no evidence. No evidence whatsoever. Just like there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever about election fraud. Nope. The 2020 election was the single most pristine election in the history of humanity. I mean, you could see it with the USA Today headline. Look at this. Look, Ma, no evidence. Oh, I wonder where they got that from. Aren't you glad that USA Today hires actual reporters who do independent fact-checking and don't push prepackaged Democrat drivel? Here's the comparable lobotomist over at Yahoo News talking about, quote, zero evidence in their headline for the impeachment inquiry. They're all actively, faithfully spewing out corporate-approved talking points because they're all on the same team. They're the Praetorian Guard press. Their job is to protect the permanent political class, which in turn protects them. And so as far as the legacy media is concerned, that's the narrative. That's all you're going to be hearing about. This impeachment inquiry is being launched without a shred of evidence that Biden's done anything wrong. Well, it's just like 2020. Biden's the single most moral man to ever walk the halls of D.C., blah, blah. That's the unilateral narrative of the lobotomist legacy media. Now, I want you to understand right away the nature of the psyop of what the legacy media is doing here. I'm going to show you exactly how the legacy media tries to fool their rapidly dwindling audience. You see, there are two theories of truth. There are two theories of how we arrive at truth. One is called the correspondence theory of truth, and it's very simple. A statement is true if it corresponds to an objective state of affairs. It is hot outside is true if it corresponds to a high degree of temperature outdoors. Simple enough, right? That's what's known as the correspondence theory of truth. I make a statement that's true if it corresponds to a previously existing state of affairs. What the legacy media operates with, however, is something more akin to what's called the performative theory of truth. Now, this is very, very interesting. The performative theory of truth looks at statements that actually generate reality. They create reality by virtue of their very utterance. So, for example, when a pastor or priest declares, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," The words actually create a new state of affairs for the betrothed. They weren't husband and wife until the clergyman declared them so. It's the same with a judge's verdict. I find the defendant not guilty. And then he hits, his hammer on the gavel. That's what's called a performative truth. The truth of that defendant's guilt or not guilt was just determined by virtue of the words used by someone in authority to make those pronouncements. Again, same thing. With the authority invested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. This is how the legacy media works. They're not in the business of reporting reality, the correspondence theory of truth. They're instead in the business of fabricating reality, of declaring their truths, not proving them or reporting them, ironically, but simply declaring them. The legacy media unilaterally declared the 2020 election the single most pristine election with no evidence of fraud whatsoever. And as far as they and the establishment is concerned, that settles it. It's an authoritative pronouncement that creates the state of affairs it pronounces. That's how they work. Now, the good news is that no one's buying it anymore. And I'm going to show you precisely that. But first, gang, do you love meat? I know I do, but the globalists in power, the WEF, along with their media lackeys at places like NPR, do not want you to be enjoying red meat and organic animal products on a regular basis. I recall a certain Klaus Schwab very much wanting us to eat the bugs, as it were. But I have the antidote to this anti-meat fervor right here with ButcherBox. You're going to absolutely love this. ButcherBox is a service that assembles a curated box of organic, grass-fed, free-range, wild-caught everything every month and delivers it straight to your front door. Up to 14 pounds of meat. They're absolutely amazing. And get this, if you click on the link below right now for a limited time, they're offering 2 packs of high-quality bacon. Bacon, gang, absolutely free in every one of your boxes. That's 24 packs of free bacon. But that is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Click on that link in the description below and get some of the highest quality meats available today. Now, it'll come as no surprise to you that poll after poll shows that the legacy media has experienced a total implosion in trust and confidence. They're just not fooling anyone anymore. We have to recognize just how far the legacy media has fallen here. In the 1960s, 50 million people on average got their news from the 3 networks. Cronkite alone could pull in 30 million. That's when our nation had a population of around 200 million. Today, our country is approaching 350 million population. And when you combine all the networks and all the cable news outlets, combine them all, the total viewership barely tops 20 million. Today, all the network and cable news outlets combined don't get the audience that one anchor, Walter Cronkite, alone was able to get. The legacy media has imploded. And this is largely because of their embracing what's called advocacy journalism. Advocacy journalism begins with the woke leftist partisan narrative, the performative truth. And then the so-called journalist attempts to fit the so-called facts into that frame, into that narrative. So advocacy journalism almost inevitably commits the fallacy known as confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when you deliberately reconfigure information data specifically around your prior beliefs and values. So it's basically a kangaroo court. And this is why more and more people see the so-called information coming out of the legacy media as no more trustworthy than so-called scientific data coming out of Philip Morris or Marlboro cigarettes. I mean, remember when Lester Holt of NBC News shocked his audience when he was accepting an award at a media symposium? It was just a few months back. He made the rather shocking admission that, quote, it's become clear that fairness is overrated, saying that the idea that we should always give 2 sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in. I mean, they're openly admitting they've picked sides. They are blatantly partisan. And the irony in all of this is that that partisanship is literally killing the legacy media as a viable business model. That's because when all is said and done, the success of modern journalism is built on trust. The only way modern journalism works is if audiences Audiences trust the news outlets as reliable mediators of information. If there's a significant doubt that arises from that, if audiences begin to suspect that they're being fed a bunch of partisan talking points, they're going to look elsewhere for their information. So you can see how these two dynamics interrelate. The more partisan the legacy media appears, the more trust in the media erodes, and the more trust in the media erodes, the more they lose their audience, which means the only audience that's left are the fringe partisan diehards who want the media to lie. They want the media to go even further left, and the whole cycle repeats itself. And so what all of this means is that the days of the legacy media are really coming to an end. Oh, sure, they're still treated to the silly kabuki theater where politicians come out and address the media with the microphone, blah, blah, blah. But less viewers are taking them seriously than ever before. The days of the legacy media are quickly coming to an end. And we're going to find out how much it's come to an end, I believe, with this impeachment inquiry. Hey, gang, I know what it's like to feel alone out there in these turbulent times, but I broke free. If you too have been looking for a community with like-minded patriots who are serious about resisting globalism, building a parallel economy, and having intelligent and deep fellowship on a regular basis, then you've come to the right place. In my Courageous Patriot Insiders community, we're building a close-knit movement of, by, and for patriots who are breaking free from the outrage and despair cycles of the mainstream media and taking on the fight against globalism. Every week, I deep dive into the content I can't share on big tech and give you the cliff notes on the truth of how patriots just like you are building up their communities, starting patriot businesses, and fighting the woke in both public and private. All with a few history and political lessons from yours truly, of course. If you want to stop feeling alone as a patriot and stand together with this fast-growing community, be sure to click on the link in the description below. Don't wait. Join me and my Patriot Coalition today, and let's get fighting.